Today we're going to talk about RV Safe GPS and navigation and what to use and how to use it. You know, we're going to compare Apple Maps, we're going to compare RV Trip Wizard's RV Safe GPS, and we're going to compare the Garmin RV 890. And we've partnered today with Techno RV to help create this comparison for you, so you can kind of see some of the pros and the cons of all three of them, so you can help decide what's going to be best for you and your family as you're traveling down the road. All right, so let me get my phone out here. I have my notes. So one of the biggest benefits of Apple Maps is it's built into CarPlay. So if your vehicle, most newer vehicles in the last 5 years have built-in CarPlay, and you know, so the fact is I don't have to have another screen up, anything like that. I have it built into the dash. So that's my favorite like selling feature of Apple Maps. RV Life or the RV Safe GPS is the same way, right? It's not a built-in, it's not a function of Apple, but the app is CarPlay enabled, so you can pull it up, you can see it. You know, the point where I like the Apple Maps is the fact that it's updated by Apple throughout the year. You know, I can't necessarily say that for the RV Safe GPS, that it's being updated with new points of interest and new features and things like that throughout the year. So that kind of makes the Garmin, in my opinion, one of the biggest downfalls is that it is a standalone device, right? It's another screen, right? This one, we just happen to pick this one. This one has an 8-inch screen, right? So it is a big screen, but it is another screen or another device I have to have on the dash. You know, and so that goes when, you know, we have TPMS, and then, you know, if you have a backup camera, all those things, those are additional devices you have to have up on the dash that can take away from your view. And part of it is we have it on this mount here. This is not the mount that came with it. We kind of retrofitted this, and we're going to change it because it interferes with the GoPro that we use in the cab, right? So that is a downfall. Now, some downfalls of Apple Maps is it runs on cell phone service, right? So the same thing with RV Safe GPS is it runs on cellular service, meaning if you load up your maps and you're in good service, you can get from point A to point B. It will still give you turn-by-turn directions. But let's say you have to detour, right? You have to pull over or you miss your turn. If you're not in cell phone service, then it will not update. It won't reroute you, which is a big downfall, especially as you get into some of those more remote places, like up in the mountains, out in the deserts. Especially one of the biggest ones is in West Texas, on Interstate 10 between about Odessa Midland and El Paso. There's a huge dead zone there, but also as you get up in the mountains like the Smoky Mountains and things like that, you're not going to have service, right? So if you take that wrong turn or whatever it be, you're not going to get updated maps. Now, the Garmin runs off of satellites, right? So as long as you have a clear view of the sky, then you're going to be able to pick up the satellites to reroute your directions, right? So, you know, for that, the Garmin is definitely a win. Another thing that I highly like, my number one thing that I wish Apple Maps would have was RV dimensions, right? So we can put in the size, the weight, are we carrying propane, things like that, right? That's what the Garmin RV 890 is for, is you can put in all your dimensions of your RV, your motorhome, whatever it may be. So you have RV Safe GPS. So you're going to route down roads where only your RV could get down, right? It's going to try to not put you down roads where your RV wouldn't be good at, or you can't navigate, right? So that was the selling factor. That's why we got this, because we have taken some wrong roads. Luckily we haven't gotten into any like low clearance bridges, but that is a possibility, right? So that's why we went with this. Now, Apple Maps, that's my biggest feature, is I wish they would add that feature to Apple Maps. I think that would be my 100% go-to if they did that. Now, again, RV Safe GPS, it allows you to do that. It's integrated within the RV Life system. You know, so it does allow, you know, you to kind of put those dimensions in there. Now, here's where Garmin and Apple kind of push a sell or go on better than the RV Safe GPS is Garmin has Google Voice integration, so you can say, "Hey Garmin," and give it a street address or whatever it may be, and it's going to work, right? Now, Apple Maps has that Siri integration, right? And Siri integration in my truck, I can operate from the steering wheel, so I can hit a button and it'll activate Siri, right? It doesn't have the Hey Siri function, meaning when you say that, right, like Hey Garmin, it will automatically recognize, versus Hey Siri, it won't necessarily always recognize. But it is a hands-free alternative to be able to get yourself some navigation, some directions like that. Right? One of the things I love about Apple Maps is it has the options to avoid things on your route with hazard notifications, right? So it pop up and say you have traffic coming ahead, right? Here's a detour, save 25 minutes, save a minute, save whatever it is, right? It automatically pops up and recognizes that, right? Which is huge. From what I can tell, RV Safe GPS and the Garmin system does not have hazard avoidance detection, right? Apple will pop up and say, you know, hazard in the road, there's a wreck, or there's even like speed checks, right? So you know if there's a cop radaring, right? So those are some of the big, you know, big things that I find handy. Now, one of the factors that I can tell only Garmin has is multiple profiles, meaning I can set up my travel trailer in here. If I have a utility trailer, I can have a separate profile for that. I have a separate profile for just my truck, right? So you can have multiple profiles, so you can have one unit and take it and not have to change the settings, right? And that's big. You know, all those little things help save time, right? You just go in and hit a button, and you change the profile, right? And Garmin, like I said, is the only one that I think has that. Apple definitely doesn't have it. I couldn't find the feature within the RV Life GPS, right? Now, another big selling factor is finding additional stops. On your Apple Maps, you're limited to a few categories, right? As of right now in iOS 15, you're only limited to a few categories like gas stations, some restaurants, and they're only within so many minutes around you, right? I couldn't find that feature on the RV Safe GPS for RV Life. For one, RV Life is absolutely not gonna be in my tool bag, because it had a lot of bugs and a lot of errors, and it started dropping out on me, right? Garmin is easy. You can look up multiples of different types of different points of interest, and you can add it to your route, versus Apple Maps, you have to completely cancel your current route to find or to route somewhere else, right? So if I found a point of interest, I wanted to stop, I needed a gas station, and I routed to it, then it's going to route me there. And then when I need to go from that gas station, that point of interest, and go, you know, back to my normal route, I'm going to have to type that in again, right? And Garmin, you can add multiple stops and things like that all on your same route, which is very beneficial, because that just keeps my hands free, and we're not constantly trying to change things. Oh, I missed that turn, whatever it may be, right? Traffic updates. both the Garmin and Apple Maps have traffic updates. Now, I think Apple Maps do it a little bit better in the fact that I can zoom out, I can see it, I know where in the road that it's typically going to start, and it starts telling me ahead of time, right? The Garmin traffic alerts, first of all, you have to be connected to Bluetooth to your phone running the Garmin Drive app, and even then the traffic updates to me aren't as in depth as they are with Apple Maps. They still work and they're still there, but I think Apple Maps does that just a little bit better. Again, Apple Maps has very few route options, right? Typically it gives you 2 to 3 route options, like the shortest distance, the fastest time, and then, you know, usually one other. Now, where I think Garmin excels is it allows you to drag your waypoints around. So if I know I want to route through, you know, Dallas-Fort Worth, but I want to take the loop around, then I can drag my route to give me that loop, right? It may be a little bit longer, but ultimately I may know it saves time, or I may know that it's just easier to take that route with an RV, right? So I can drag my route to kind of customize and take my route where I want it to go, so it still gives me directions, right? Versus with Apple Maps, you kind of have to drop a flag or drop a pin and route to that, and then when you route to that, you kind of have to drop another pin and route to that pin, right? So it's a very hard system to do that. So I think Garmin in that definitely excels. You know, so those are some of the big points. Like I said, RV Safe GPS from RV Trip Wizard, like, I love their service. You know, we use it all the time. In fact, we use their maintenance, we use their campground reviews, and we use RV Trip Wizard as well. But their RV Safe GPS, at least for us, was extremely glitchy, and we tried to use it several times over the last 6 months, and we'd be going down a road, and then all of a sudden it would just restart it, and we would have to go back in, like, while we're trying to drive and trying to get our route back. So it's one that I just wouldn't recommend right now. Maybe if they put more effort and work into it and made it one of their primary things that they're really trying to sell, then I think it could work. But again, you're still limited by cell phone service. You know, so I think going forward, what we're going to use primarily as navigation is a split, right? When we are not hooked up to the RV, we're going to stick with Apple Maps because of the built-in integration and things like that. But when we're hooked up and we're worried about our height and our length and our weight and things like that, we're going to the RV Garmin 890, right? Both of them are great, and in fact, we still keep the RV 890 in the console of the truck. So if we get into a situation where the cell phone service isn't working, we can pull that out and we have backup navigation when we're not using that. But while we're hooked up to the trailer, that's going to be our primary means. You know, and it's likely to change. We've been working on this for 6 to 7 months, since about December or January, I think, is when we started using it. And like I said, we've come to the conclusion that we like the safety features that it has when we're hooked up to the RV, but some of the other things keep us going back to the Apple Maps while we're in the truck without the trailer. But hands down, when we are towing anywhere at any time, it will be using the Garmin right now, right? That's the best that we have come up with, right? And you know, we've partnered with Techno RV to help create this video, and help to, you know, give us a couple different platforms to test. So instead of just testing RV Maps, or sorry, Apple Maps and RV Trip Wizard Safe GPS, right, we now could add in this option, and hands down, it is definitely a contender and probably one of the best in the game right now. And the thing about Garmin is you can go down, I think they have the 7-inch screen, the 8-inch screen, and we opted for the 8-inch because we have an 8-inch in-dash screen, right? We wanted that bigger screen to see the maps, to kind of see more around. But then you can also step up to a 10-inch screen, which just in the Rams, I think a 10-inch screen would be way too much unless I had another mount somewhere, and we just haven't figured it out. We will be changing out this mount, trying to get a little shorter bar, trying to get the GPS sucked back up closer to the dash. We were using the suction mount that came with it, and it's extremely strong. Just didn't really care for it because then that screen took up a big chunk of my window space where I was trying to see. But we are still playing with where we're going to mount it and use it, but it's going to stick around. And, definitely thank you to Techno RV for partnering with us on this and allowing us the opportunity to test this out and really figure out what the best game is for full-time traveling, right? The cost of it may keep you from using it during part-time travel, but it's definitely something I would look into and contend with.